8. False witness. In discussing false witness, we are dealing with a variation of perjury, and, in a sense, could declare that the subject is closed simply by stating that false witness in its every form is prohibited. The subtle but important varieties of false witness are cited in the law, however, and we need to recognize them. By examining the specific context of the law, sometimes much is indicated as to its meaning. Thus, the meaning of Exodus chapter 23, verses 1, 2, and 7 becomes clearer if verses 1 to 9 are examined. Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him. Thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not. For I will not justify the wicked. And thou shalt take no gift. For the gift blindeth the wise, and perverteth the words of the righteous. Also, thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Before examining this passage, let us note what Isaac Barrow long ago said of the 9th Commandment. It is in the Hebrew, thou shalt not answer, to wit, being examined or adjured in judgments, against thy neighbour as a false witness, especially in matters of capital or of high concern to him, is prohibited, yet that not only this great crime, but that all injurious, even extrajudicial, prejudicing our neighbour's reputation, and consequently his safety or his welfare in any sort, is forbidden. We may collect from that explication of this law, or that parallel law which we have in Leviticus. Thou shalt not. It is said there, Go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbour as talebearer. That is, a merchant or trader in ill reports and stories concerning our neighbour, to his prejudice, defaming him, or detracting from him, or breeding in the minds of men an ill opinion of him, which vile and mischievous practice is otherwise under several names condemned and reproved. The law against false witness is thus primarily with reference to a court of law, and secondarily with reference to life in the community. Exodus chapter 23, verses 1 to 9 sets the law of false witness, in both its meanings, in the context of a broader requirement of justice. Rylersdom has called verses 1 to 9 a group of principles and admonitions designed to give the spirit of justice and to permeate all legal decisions. Several principles appear in these laws. First, a godly man must move in terms of God's law, not the mob or multitude, because the spirit of the mob, however powerful in governing man, is rarely, if ever, the law of God. Verse 2. A man must have courage and faith, not the power of man, but the power of God must govern him. Second, just as he cannot be moved by the mob, neither can he be governed by personal considerations, that is, pity for the poor, verse 3, nor friendliness to the rich, verse 6. Bribes are an even greater instance of distortion of law, in that they blind man to the real issues, so that he deliberately gives a false witness, whether as witness or judge, verses 7 and 8. A stranger or alien must receive the same justice as a friend, verse 9, and an enemy is due the same justice and assistance in real need as a friend, verses 4 and 5. Third, malicious witness is condemned, as are false reports, in the first verse, and we can infer that all the following verses give instances of such false reports or malicious witness. In brief, there is a close and necessary correlation between words and deeds. Malice in words means malice in deeds also. A man who issues a false and malicious report or witness concerning his neighbour, in or out of court, is likely also to be unwilling to assist that man if his ox is astray and his ass overburdened. A dishonest witness is also, essentially, a corrupt neighbour. In the modern perspective, words are often theoretically treated as though they are nothing. Freedom of speech is interpreted to mean the total right of expression without consequence, an ideal never fully established in practice. The dream of absolute free speech is a myth and a delusion. No society has ever granted it. We do not recognize the right of a man to shout "fire" in a crowded theatre, nor to call for the execution of the president, nor to publish totally false and malicious statements with respect to a man. Speech must be responsible to be free, and there is a social necessity for freedom of responsible speech. The advocates of free speech are logical in also demanding free action, freedom from all responsibility in speech and act. No society can exist if such total freedom from responsibility is permitted. Not surprisingly, the most vocal champions of free speech today are those who champion a revolution which will deny free speech to all others tomorrow. They suppress free speech in a very real fear of the responsible word as well as the irresponsible one. The foundations of their fear of contrary words is, in part, political safety, and in part, religious fear. In ancient pagan belief, the word had magical power. Word and act were creatively related. Because man is the god of all humanism, and paganism was humanistic, therefore, man's word is held to have creative power. Hence, the ancient search for the magic word which governed especially potent acts. Open sesame, abracadabra, and the like. By possession of the word, man possessed special powers. This belief is echoed in occultism today, and in secret lodges with their special passwords and hidden terms. It is not lacking from secular and public humanism, however, where the magical identification of word and act is often implicit. The partiality to the phrase maker is perhaps evidence of this. American liberals preferred the impotent John F. Kennedy, who mouthed the language of the intellectuals, to the very substantial socialist gains of Lyndon B. Johnson, who lacked the verbalizing powers the liberals rejoice in. A clearer example is the faith of the humanists in the power of rationally conceived plans and ideas. Because man's creative word is assumed to have divine power, so that the word is the act, as with God. So the humanistic intellectuals assume that once their rational or scientific plans are conceived, they need only to be declared by the state in order to become a reality. The result is a very great humanistic faith in the power of legislation. Van der Leeuw has summed it up ably. It is the word that decides the possibility, for it is an act, an attitude, a taking one's stand, and an exercise of power, and in every word there is something creative. It is expressive and exists prior to so-called actuality. For the humanist, the words of the non-humanist, of the uninformed, the unenlightened, are empty words. The words of the elite are creative, divine words. The biblical position is that man, created in the image of God, speaks not a creative word, but an analogical word, that is, he can think and speak God's thoughts after him, and therein is man's power. Man exercises power and dominion under God to the extent that he speaks and acts in terms of God's creative word. It was the temptation of Satan that man could speak his own divine and creative word. Ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. Man, according to Satan, will then establish his own divine word, speak and declare for himself what is good and evil. Reality will be reordered and recreated by man's own word. In the world of Satan, man's word is the act, and the new world is born when man separates himself by word from God. Because man is created in the image of God, speech is important to man. Words are the subject of 2 commandments, the 3rd and the 9th. When man gives false witness, when he takes the name of the Lord in vain, or acts in violation of it, man then denies the image in favor of Satan's claim that man makes himself. When Sartre insists that man makes his own essence, that is, that man defines himself and brings himself into being out of nothingness, he is affirming Satan's position. But wherever man gives true witness in the full sense of the word, there he grows in terms of the restored image of God. The context of Exodus chapter 23, verses 1 to 9, makes clear thus that a faithful witness is a part of a way of life, a spirit of justice. A faithful witness transcends personal issues such as friendship or enmity towards a man. Where men have no right to the truth, it is not because we dislike them, but because they are at war with God's law, trying to extract the truth from us for evil and unlawful ends. The point is that the law of God must govern us, as Van Til has observed with respect to philosophical thought. God is the original, and man is derivative. Moreover, if one does not make human knowledge wholly dependent upon the original self-knowledge and consequent revelation of God to man, then man will have to seek knowledge within himself as the final reference point. Translated into the world of law, this means that the point of reference in speech is not man. The law of God does not permit us to use words with reference to our love and hatred, likes and dislikes, to our profit and loss. The analogical word means the obedient word. The words of Rahab and the midwives were obedient words, and David cites also as the man of God, "He that sweareth to his own hurt, and changeth not." Psalm 15, verse 4. That is, the man who gives honest testimony in a court of law to his own detriment. The entire psalm, in fact, stresses the significance of a total true witness. Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness, and speaketh the truth in his heart. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbour, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbour. In whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honoureth them that fear the Lord. He that sweareth to his own hurt, and changeth not. He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent. He that doeth these things shall never be moved. Psalm 15. This psalm is a commentary on Exodus chapter 23, verses 1 to 9. The analogical word is the word of a faithful witness in the act of obedience. True witness has reference first and last to God and His justice, not to man and his wishes. Where God's absolute law word is gone, truth and true witness quickly vanish. A book by Sam Keane, To a Dancing God, begins, I, Sam Keane, wrote this book. The voice that speaks to you in these essays is mine. It is not the voice of philosophy or theology or modern man. What I offer is a series of personal reflections upon issues, problems and crises with which I have had to wrestle. The conclusions I have reached are not inescapable. Both my doubts and my certainties may be too intimately connected to unique elements in my autobiography to be typical of that nebulous creature called modern man. When I speak with assurance, it is because I have discovered some elements of a style of life that are satisfying for me. However, the affirmations I make have no authority unless you choose to add your voice to mine. This is how it is with me. I cannot say how it is with you. Nevertheless, I would invite you to replace the I of these essays with we when you find yourselves in agreement. Without God's absolute word, man can only offer a lifestyle, not the truth. Authority is also gone when truth is gone. The ability to distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong, is also gone, because in an existential world, all things are relative, and man is beyond good and evil. Billy Graham, having moved progressively into an experiential concept of truth, could thus say, as cited in 1970 by Robert Davis in his News Briefs, that he refused to discuss communism, although he had once been known as a great foe of that system. For years I have not spoken about that, he said. I cannot go around the world and say who is right and who is not right. Graham's comments came in an interview with Der Spiegel, a German news magazine. When truth and truth-telling are both divorced from God and His absolute law word, they both disappear.